Hello and welcome to this webinar on sharing results with D3PLOT Viewer. My name is Alasdair Parks and today I'm joined by Jason Charnley, one of the lead developers of D3PLOT Viewer. Together we're going to talk about the new support for Dropbox and Microsoft SharePoint and how you can use them to create a powerful collaborative experience for your team and your business partners. Here's an overview of what we'll cover in this session. First, I'll give you a quick recap of D3PLOT Viewer so far and what it can do for you and your team. Then we'll take a look at the process of sharing results and explore how to take advantage of the new Dropbox and OneDrive integrations. Next, Jason will explain some of the important technical considerations that will help you have a smooth experience with the cloud storage solutions. And finally, we'll have a look ahead at what's next for D3PLOT Viewer and listen to your feedback. By the end of this webinar, you will know how to make the most of the D3PLOT Viewer sharing experience and have all the information you need to make 3D results on the web better than ever for everyone involved. As a quick recap, D3PLOT Viewer has the power to transform the way that you review, communicate, and deliver engineering analysis. Break free from the 2D confines of these traditional reports. With D3PLOT Viewer, you can improve productivity in team meetings and design reviews by exploring results together in 3D. Share animated 3D models with designers and suppliers to help them improve the performance of parts and assemblies. You can automatically generate the output files as part of your LS-DYNA job submission, and then use D3PLOT Viewer to make a quick check of results as they complete. And give your clients added value with 3D project deliverables. There are lots of basic 3D web viewers out there, but we've taken extra care to make D3PLOT Viewer the best way to view LS-DYNA results. You can use D3PLOT Viewer in both light mode and dark mode, and you should find that it defaults to your web browser setting. So if I go to my browser settings and switch to dark mode, then if I go back to my D3PLOT Viewer tab, I can see that it has changed to dark mode too. I can also control light and dark mode independently from my browser defaults using the toggle in the options menu. You can navigate the model using your mouse or touchscreen and zoom in and out, rotate and pan around the model using intuitive controls. This control down here allows you to recenter the view, and the navigation menu has various preset views to make it easy to get to the particular view that you're interested in. With the animation play bar, you can pause and play the animation. You can also control the playback speed for when you need to take a closer look at what's happening in the simulation. You can also use the playback slider to slide through and left and right arrow keys to go back and forwards between frames. If you switch to the blanking mode, then you can click on the model to blank individual parts. You can also use the shortcuts in the blanking menu to reverse the view. A useful tip is to hold the Shift key to temporarily switch back to navigation mode. This allows you to rotate the model and then, when you release the Shift key, to revert back to blanking mode, allowing you to blank more parts. If you want to get back to where you started, you can press U to unblank all of the parts in the model. The part tree allows you to see the structure of the model and to blank entire assemblies to focus on the parts of interest. The Cut Section tool allows you to quickly add a cut section to your model to see what's happening inside. The Cut Section menu gives you full control over the cut section properties, or you can use the intuitive grab handles to manipulate the direction and angle of your cut section in 3 dimensions. Cut sections are a really good way of understanding your analysis results and they're just one of many advanced features we'll be adding to D3PLOT Viewer. So, now that you've seen some of the benefits of D3PLOT Viewer, you might want to know a bit more about how it works. D3PLOT Viewer is free to use, free for your team, your partners, and your clients. There's no installation, no registration, no setup required. Simply load models and start exploring in 3D. D3PLOT Viewer reads GLB files, which are generated by Oasis D3plot. And when you open a model in D3plot Viewer, all of your model data stays in your browser. It doesn't get uploaded anywhere. If you need to work offline, you can download the HTML bundle. But of course, you'll need to use the online version to take advantage of the new Dropbox and SharePoint features. So, now that you're up to speed with D3plot Viewer, let's move on to the main topic for today's webinar, sharing. D3plot Viewer is a great way of visualizing analysis results in 3D, but first you'll need to get your results into the hands of your team and your business partners. It all starts in Oasis D3plot, our powerful LS-DYNA postprocessor. Once you've identified the portion of your model with the key results you want to share, go to the Images menu and select D3plot Viewer. In the Export panel, you can choose to export an uncompressed GLB file for compatibility with Microsoft PowerPoint at the expense of file size, and you can also choose whether to export a single frame or an animation. For the animations, you can select the frame rate and the number of states. Once you're ready to export your chosen file name, click Capture, and D3plot will create a GLB file ready for viewing in D3plot Viewer. On the D3plot Viewer landing page, you can either drag and drop your GLB file onto the page or browse for it using the My Device selector. But how do you share the GLB file with your team member, partner, or client? If the GLB file is very small, you could send it as an email attachment. Or if you work in the same organization, you might save it to a shared local network drive. If you have Dropbox or Microsoft 365, it's easy to save the file to shared cloud storage. These are all good options, but until now, you have to say to your recipient, here's a GLB file, you'll need to download it from this link, and then load it into D3plot Viewer at d3plotviewer.com. And remember, if you generate a sharing link with Dropbox or Microsoft SharePoint in the usual way, if your recipient clicks the link, it will just take them to the file online, perhaps showing a basic preview, but they'll still need to download it to use it with D3plot Viewer. So here's where our new integrations with Dropbox and Microsoft SharePoint and OneDrive come in. Now, you can load models into D3plot Viewer directly from Dropbox and OneDrive, and then use D3plot Viewer to create sharing links that your team can open directly with a single click. Let me show you how it works. Let's take a look at Dropbox first. You can now load GLB files directly from Dropbox using the file selector on the D3plot Viewer landing page. Browse for the file you wish to load and click Choose. D3plot Viewer will then load it in the usual way. Once you are ready to create a sharing link, go to the Options menu and click Share. With Dropbox, there are two sharing options. The first is to create a public sharing link that anyone in the world with the link can access. Simply click to create the sharing link. D3plot Viewer will quickly connect with Dropbox to generate the sharing link, which you can then copy and paste into any communication with your participants. Alternatively, you can create a private sharing link that will only give access to named participants. Once you've entered the email addresses of the people you wish to share with, click Add. Then create the sharing link as before. So now, if Jason says to me, here's a preview of our latest results, I can just click on the link, and D3PLOT Viewer will launch in my web browser and load the file straight from Dropbox. This new process makes it a much smoother experience for your team and partners. Now let's take a look at Microsoft SharePoint and OneDrive. This time we can use the OneDrive file selector. The Microsoft OneDrive Picker gives you access to all of the files you could access using Microsoft 365. My Files gives you access to your personal OneDrive files, but you can also access all of your Microsoft Teams and SharePoint areas using the Quick Access sidebar. You can see here I've pinned the ones I use most frequently, but I can also browse for more places to access all of my files. Here I'm going to use this Microsoft team called D3PLOT Viewer Users and browse for the file that I want to load. I click Select and D3PLOT Viewer loads the file in the usual way. As with Dropbox, when I'm ready to share, I go to the Options menu and click Share. Now, if the SharePoint site that you are sharing from is a public SharePoint site, then you have two options, both to create a link that anyone in your organization can access, and also by creating a link that only specific people with the link can access. If the SharePoint site that you're sharing from is a private SharePoint site, then you'll only have the option to share with specific people that you name. On this occasion, I'm just going to create a link that everyone in my organization can access. And just as with Dropbox, if Jason creates a sharing link using D3PLOT Viewer with Microsoft SharePoint, I can simply click on it and it will launch D3PLOT Viewer in my web browser. It'll ask me to sign in to my Microsoft account and then loads the file straight into D3PLOT Viewer. Now that I have shown you the new Dropbox and Microsoft sharing integrations for D3PLOT Viewer, I'm going to hand over to Jason Charnley, who will cover some of the technical considerations. He will start with Dropbox before covering Microsoft SharePoint.
Dropbox. In this section, we will go over setup and permissions to use Dropbox, also individual and team accounts. In order to enable file sharing with Dropbox, you need to connect your account. You can do this by granting the D3PLOT Viewer access during the onboarding process. Please follow the sign-in process in the pop-out dialog window shown. The Dropbox application requires the following permissions to provide the functionality to share files. These three permissions are Edit, View and Manage, and View. All permissions are managed from your own account. Oasis Limited has no visibility of your account, files, or groups. These are required to provide file sharing capabilities. Dropbox Individual and Team accounts. Individual accounts. When you share a file or folder with someone, you can decide which permissions they have. Members of a shared file or folder can have one of three roles: owner, editor, or viewer. Owner. Only one member can be the owner of a folder. The creator of a shared folder is automatically the owner, unless that shared folder is created within someone else's parent folder or they change the owner to someone else. Editor. Any member you give this permission to can add, edit, download, share, or delete files in the shared folder. Viewer. Any member you give this permission to can view, download, share, and comment on files in the shared folder, but not add, edit, or delete files. Team accounts. By default, anyone with edit permissions to a folder has edit permissions to all of its subfolders inside it. For example, if a member of a group can edit design, they can also edit any folders inside design. Sharing options are inherited from the active Dropbox account and are limited to the privileges set by the account's administrator. Team accounts may have some sharing restrictions, such as public links. Microsoft SharePoint. In this section, we'll cover 3 areas: Setup API permissions, Azure Administrator approval, guest sharing and possible limitations. SharePoint Setup. In order to enable file sharing with SharePoint, you need to give the D3PLOT Viewer various permissions. These are required for the Microsoft Publisher Verified D3PLOT Viewer application to create SharePoint sharing links, with access given to the people you specify. A Microsoft 365 license is required to sign in and create sharing links. This includes access to Microsoft OneDrive. The principle of least API privileges is adopted, and the majority of permissions are read-only, apart from users invite all, which is required for guest sharing. If you are the first person in your organization with an Azure Active Directory who signs in, you will see the permission request pop-up window shown. Please consent on behalf of your organization and accept. SharePoint Azure Administrator approval. If you accept, a notification will be sent to your IT department to grant permissions to the D3PLOT Viewer Enterprise application within your organization's Microsoft Azure portal. We recommend that you also contact your IT department separately to request approval in case they do not see the notification. Once one person requests approval, your IT department can approve access for anyone in your organization at once. Admin consent, so other people who subsequently share files will not see the permission request pop up. An IT administrator for your organization's Microsoft tenant can approve permissions via the Azure portal under Enterprise Applications. Find D3PLOT Viewer, the Permissions tab. In there, the admin can grant admin consent for the Oasis LS-DYNA environment. Guest sharing and possible limitations. Setup. As well as sharing internally within your organization, if your organization permits it, you can also create sharing links for external guests. These could be other businesses with their own Microsoft tenant or other guests using non-Microsoft accounts. For example, Google Mail. For external sharing to be successful, your organization's Microsoft Azure tenant, its SharePoint root site, and the SharePoint site containing the file must all have the sharing setting allow external guests. Note that some organizations choose to allow external guests for some of its sites within their tenant, but not the root site. Unfortunately, because of the current limitations with the Microsoft Graph API, the D3PLOT Viewer application cannot create external sharing links unless your organization's root site is also set to allow external guests. Please let us know if this affects you. To share a specific file with external people, enter each person's email address. When you create a link for external guests, Microsoft will first send a tenant invitation to their mailbox. Guest sharing redemption process. The invitation email is a redemption process which must be completed in order for those users to be allowed into your tenant as a guest. Guest users have limited scope by default, and they will not be able to create sharing links themselves or load files directly from the OneDrive picker, unless they have an associated Microsoft OneDrive SharePoint license. By default, all other email accounts, such as Google Mail, will have read access to the shared resource only. For site security, guest users only have the permissions to view files you share. They do not have any other access to other resources within your tenant. Troubleshooting issues. If you run into any problems, the application will display an error message and code. Note it down and contact support where we can assist.
Thanks very much, Jason, for running through those technical considerations. The main contact for us is at dyna.support@arup.com, and I'll show you all the regional contact information at the end of the webinar. Before we wrap up, let's take a look ahead at what's in store for D3PLOT Viewer. We've obviously shown you the new Dropbox and OneDrive integrations for D3PLOT Viewer, but we could certainly add links to alternative cloud storage that you might find useful. For instance, Google Drive. Do let us know if there's a particular provider that you would like us to support. We've also made D3PLOT Viewer more connected with cloud storage, but there's further that we are able to do in this area. If you're interested in a fully fledged cloud service, then please contact us and we can discuss it further. And finally, what would you like to see in D3PLOT Viewer? Earlier I showed some of the advanced features like cut sections, but there's certainly more in the pipeline and we'd love to hear from you. So that's it for today's webinar. If you have any questions, we'd be delighted to take them now, or you can contact us separately using these details. Thank you very much.